Mr. Chairman, thank you for making the time.
Always a pleasure to be with you, Kevin.
I want to get right into it about the news of the past several days, in particular about President Trump's decision to fire now former FBI Director James Comey. Does whomever President Trump nominate need some support from Democrats in order to be perceived as legitimate?
Well, I'll tell you what they have to do if they want to earn the trust and respect of the American people is make sure that they appoint an independent prosecutor to take a look at what happened. I prosecuted cases at the Department of Justice. I spent over a decade of my life there. I prosecuted cases under Republican and Democratic administrations. I know what obstruction of justice cases are because I did them.
And you believe this is obstruction of justice?
Last week's tweet is an example of a piece of evidence I would have used in an obstruction of justice case. We need an independent investigator, an independent prosecutor who can look at the truth. I can handle the truth. The American people can handle the truth. I don't understand why Donald Trump can't handle the truth, which is why he fired Mr. Comey.
I want to give you a chance to respond to something that Republicans have been saying for quite some time since the firing, which is that, hey, wait a minute. Democrats had argued that Director Comey was doing a bad job repeatedly. It's hypocritical. That's the word we hear of them to make this case. What's your response?
Oh, quite simply, I absolutely had issues, serious issues with what Director Comey did. But the fact of the matter is that had absolutely nothing to do with his firing. When we heard President Trump said, I fired him because he mistreated Hillary Clinton, that doesn't pass the laugh test. And they went off of that because they knew that was not good. And so just to be clear, he was fired because he's the investigator in an investigation that could implicate the President of the United States. That is an affront to our democracy. That's an affront to our independence.
And that's the point that I want to pick up on, though, because as whomever President Trump nominates, and I want to ask you this again, if no Democrats support whomever that nominee is this FBI director legitimate?
Well, I want the FBI director to be able to command the respect of the American people.
Does he need Democrats to do that?
Well, having Democrats to do that would be helpful, but more importantly, what you need, Kevin, is the appointment of an independent prosecutor. Because you know what happens if you get the best FBI director, but you are reporting up the chain to a Department of Justice that Donald Trump seems to have in his back pocket, then the best director in the world doesn't get you anywhere.
Have there been any names, Mr. Chairman, that have been made public that are on the short list for FBI director? People like Senator John Cornyn, for example, who have been on there that you could get behind?
Well, I mean, Senator John Cornyn is the perfect example of what not to do. I mean, he's a partisan Republican. He has been defending Donald Trump. And you're going to put him in charge of the FBI where they would be investigating the interaction between Trump and Putin? I mean, that is beyond the fox guarding the hen house. And that's why you need, first of all, to have an independent counsel looking at the investigation. And then there are plenty of people out there. But the challenge is that what the president did last week in firing Comey, clearly motivated by the fact that he was involved in the Russia investigation, any credible FBI director worth her salt or worth his salt is going to have serious hesitation to take a job where there are loyalty oaths that appear to be demanded.
Let's talk about other tough jobs. You've got a tough job. As chairman of the DNC, you're having to unify this Democratic Party. How is that going? What are you having to do? And what are some of your objectives now?
Sure. Well, I think we're making progress. We still have work to do. And we have to get back to basics as a Democratic Party. When we put our values into action and when we lead with our unity and our values, we do very well. And I'll give you an example. The health care efforts of this administration to repeal the Affordable Health Care Act and to put 24 million Americans in jeopardy and tens of millions of Americans with pre-existing conditions in jeopardy and seniors who rely on the Affordable Care Act for their prescription drug benefits. Our unity has been our greatest strength, and we're going to continue to fight as
But there's
Democrats.
A palpable anger, Mr. Chairman. You know this. You've been all over the country, both as chairman and as previous in your capacity as Department of Labor Secretary in the Obama administration. I've interviewed activists all across the country during the campaign, and left, right, there's an anger. How do you, as you head into midterm elections, cultivate that and channel that, and which seats in particular, especially in 2018, are on your mind?
Well, let's start with 2017, because we've got gubernatorial elections in New Jersey and in Virginia, and I'm confident that we can pick up the governorship in New Jersey and retain the governorship in Virginia. And what we have to do is, again, make sure we're leading with our values. That's why we're together on health care. When you see what the president tried to do to enact a budget that would have eliminated Meals on Wheels, that's a morally bankrupt budget. And people understand that. And that's why this energy. Well, tax reform is what his effort to repeal the Affordable Care Act is about, except what it is, it's not tax reform. It's a massive tax cut for wealthy people, because the way the Affordable Care Act subsidies were financed was a tax on wealthy people. And what the Affordable Care Act repeal is about is, first of all, an age tax on people over 50, and secondly, a massive tax cut for wealthy people. And so that's why when we're out there fighting, and leading with our values, articulating clearly what we stand for as Democrats. We are the party that stands for economic security for everyone, not just for a few at the top.
Just final question in the less than a minute we have left. Budget fight heading, people foreshadowing in September. Should there be a government shutdown in September, and should Democrats shut down the government if they're able to do it in order to hold firm on some of these values?
Listen, when the government shuts down, bad things happen to good people. The Republicans shut down the government in 2013. They shut down the government under Newt Gingrich, and bad things happen to good people. And what the Republicans have to do is understand that we need budgets that reflect our values. When you try to cut Meals on Wheels, when you cut investments in education, when you propose to cut the budget of the National Institutes of Health by billions of dollars, you're cutting that lifeline of research investment that saves lives. And right now what we're seeing, plain and simply, is the Republicans are overreaching. And that is why we're going to win seats like the congressional seat in District 6 down in Georgia. That's why we're competitive, and we're on the verge of upsets elsewhere. And that's why I think we can not only take over the House in 2018, but I think we can take the Senate back as well.